How's it going, Jets fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Moran, and we're going to discuss the waiver wire situation the Jets just went through because seemingly everybody loves the Jets roster. Everybody wants the Jets guys that they cut. Couple defensive backs, some pretty talented guys. I mean, not so many are coming back to the practice squad, which is a great sign if you're a Jets fan because, I guess we're kind of going to discuss letting Pinnock go and keeping Ashton Davis. I know a lot of people are very upset about that, including myself, because I'm very vocal that I think Ashton Davis is a terrible football player. But I will say this, the depth on this team is obviously improved. You're talking about 7 Jets players that they did not want, were picked up by other teams who needed them. That is tremendous. And we've been saying, we did the 53 roster projections 2 days ago, and we were like, this team doesn't have that many weak spots. Like on paper, they have youth, veteran, really good mix and blend of talented players who are deserving of a 53-man roster spot. They didn't even claim anybody. And I think that they might go out and try to get some guard depth on the free agent market. But, this is a situation where the Jets did a really good job laying the foundation. They laid the bricks. They drafted really well. They had some holdover players that, they were able to flip into draft capital, or rather, just let go and didn't have to really do anything with anymore. But I'm pretty excited to discuss kind of these guys who they lost, who's coming back. And, interesting conversation to have in the secondary with releasing Pinnock. But Ryan, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Alex. Definitely, pretty surprising and I think exciting for Jets fans to see just the bottom of this roster and how improved the competition was throughout this offseason and the last couple of off seasons that Joe Douglas is committed to building this thing. Like you said, 7 players that the Jets let go of, picked up in the first waiver claim period today, is quite impressive to say the least. Obviously, the Jets did not, come away with any additions. We don't know. It's one of those types of deals where you don't really know who they put in claims for and whatnot. Obviously, there's like a pecking order. But, to, come away with 7 players that you just let go of, was by far the most in the league. I want to say the second most I saw was 4. And, obviously the Jets brought a couple of guys back to the practice squad and, added one new linebacker who we're going to talk about. And, it wasn't as active as years past, like 2019 when they got JFM, Barrios. Last year they got Quincy Williams. But, overall to see as many players get picked up elsewhere as, the Jets just had is quite impressive.
That's absolutely right. And, right off the bat, let's talk about that interesting conversation with Jason Pinnock leaving and actually being claimed by the Giants. So Giants get themselves a nice little defensive piece. Obviously, they have a very weak roster in the first year of a rebuild. Secondary needed it badly. The Jets ultimately cut Will Parks, Pinnock, and then they stick with Ashton Davis, who I guess has special teams value. Like, I don't think he's a good tackler. He's not really a good coverage guy. He was playing with a third-string defense by the end of the preseason. I don't really understand why he's still on the roster. I don't really understand what his value is. Maybe he has blackmail over Robert Saleh or Joe Douglas or something. I don't know. What is your take on this? Because do you have any idea about why he's still on the roster? What value he really brings to this team at this point?
It's a great question. I was hoping Pinnock would be brought back on the practice squad, but I guess at this point in time, what you got to hope for with Ashton is that, he finally had a healthy offseason, which is, I think, a step in the right direction for him. While I'm with you, I don't necessarily know I see any, long-term hope or, potential on the defensive side of the football. But at the end of the day, this is a tall, long athlete with, track speed. And, hopefully he can carve out some type of role for himself on special teams. I think that's probably what helped him in this instance. And lastly, I think that the guy to really keep an eye on, I guess, so to speak, here is Tony Adams, an undrafted free agent as a rookie who, earned a roster spot. And, we obviously spoke ad nauseum about both Pinnock and Parks being deserving of being on this roster. But at the end of the day, I'll give JD the benefit of the doubt and, the entire personnel department and the time that they're putting in on somebody like a Tony Adams every day and, hoping for the best really with him there.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's never a bad problem to have too much talent. You have to make a difficult decision. The Jets obviously made no roster claims, so clearly they feel pretty confident with their current situation. Maybe they'll look to the free agent market to grab an offensive lineman. We'll kind of see how that develops in the next couple of days here, as we're about a week and a half away from the regular season beginning. Like I said before, 7 players cut. All 3 cornerbacks they cut were picked up: Javelin Guidry, Isaiah Dunn, and Rashad Wildgoose. That's pretty big. Like, 3 cornerbacks that you cut. So cornerback is a very difficult position to fill in the NFL. I mean, if you're a team that doesn't have them, you know how important they are. The Jets luckily have DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, and they have Bryce Love. They have some pretty decent players back there. Sauce and DJ are definitely a great 1 and 2 to have. So I'm excited to see kind of how Sauce develops this year. But they also have some good depth as well with Eccles and Michael Carter II. In the slot nickel position there. Like they have got some really talented players who, and by the way, a lot of these guys have been developed. You know what I mean? This isn't like they just free agent signed them. They developed Eccles. They developed Michael Carter II. And they did some really, really great things, putting them in positions to succeed and drafting well. Joe Douglas has done a great job with this roster so far. The last piece of the puzzle is the quarterback position, right? Like everything seems to be coming together, but Zach Wilson's development right now. Plenty of time for him to get back into the groove. Like the knee injury obviously was very disappointing. He was doing pretty well up until that point. He has an opportunity here to bounce back and show what he's got. But in the meantime, let these guys keep developing. Next year is the year you're looking at and saying, hey, this is where we're trying to make a playoff run. But how crazy is it that you think that all corners and Pinnock and linebacker Delshon Phillips, all these guys got picked up? So pretty good players there and pretty attesting to the strength of this roster.
100%. I mean, in our final projection, we did have Guidry, Phillips, and Pinnock all making R53. So I guess it's not really too surprising. I think you really said it with Pinnock. I mean, just some of the physical and athletic traits that are very developmental. And, he's still a very young player making a position change. So you're hoping for the best there with that. Delshon, obviously a guy who can really help on specials. And the 3 corners, I think the main point to really hit home with and why I said what I said about Tony Adams and really given the personnel department, the coaching staff, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, all these guys, the benefit of the doubt with somebody like a Tony Adams and his development as an early player. Guidry, undrafted free agent, Dunn, Isaiah Dunn, undrafted free agent. Rashad Wildgoose was like one of the last picks in last year's draft in 2021 in the 7th round. So, those were all, not necessarily valued draft picks, but, guys who they definitely saw some ability in and, did a good job of developing, obviously with Guidry and Dunn being homegrown, starting with the Jets. So that's definitely something to make note of. And I think you said it, whether it's MC2, Bryce Hall, Eccles, I mean, they've definitely done a good job of developing those young players. And, hopefully now with superior talent in DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, it really takes the cap off of the lid in the secondary.
Absolutely. And if the Jets wanted to keep their good luck charm around, they definitely did bring back Chris Streveler. This is a guy who the Jets fan base has fallen in love with. They brought back, obviously, Tariq Black and Irvin Charles and added linebacker Chaz Surratt, I believe, from UNC, if I'm not mistaken,
yes.
To the practice squad, right? And then, Chris Streveler, just a great story from him. I love the fact that they brought him back, showed him some love. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be making a roster anytime soon. He's just still too raw. He was a backup for the Winnipeg Jets last year. So it's like, you can't even where do they find this guy? I don't know. They were like, this guy looks interesting. Let's see what he's got. And then he killed it in preseason. Everyone's like, wait, where did this guy come from? I'd never seen this person in my life. So he's been a really good story for camp. And I think having him as that good luck charm, he also is a charismatic guy, has the energy, brings that spunk. And I think he'll definitely give it to the Jets in practice. And I think that's a good thing. For them just on the back end in terms of building that culture, which I personally think that the Jets are doing a tremendous job building a good winning culture. Like they haven't won a game yet, but they've built a culture that is consisting of young, charismatic players like Sauce, Carl Lawson, nice veteran leader there. It's really impressive. Have they announced the captains just yet?
Not that I know of. No, I haven't seen that yet.
So I imagine they will soon. And who do you think? Who do you think gets those captaincy?
That's a great question. I think Michael Carter offensively will definitely be one. I think him and Elijah Moore are 2 of those charismatic personalities to add on to what you were saying.
Uzoma, maybe?
Yeah, I could definitely see him.
I feel like there's just none of them have been on the roster for that long. I feel like they kind of want guys that have been there for a year or 2 at least. So that makes sense to me. Defensive side?
I think CJ Mosley's probably one layup.
John Franklin Myers, maybe.
Potentially Quentin Williams.
Quinnen makes sense. That's true. Quinnen definitely makes sense. I don't know. I guess those are their 2 primary, kind of big names that have experience on.
I think Justin Hardy on special teams is probably one.
Right. So Zach doesn't get one, you don't think?
That's a good question. I want to say it was him and Corey Davis last year offensively. So I know that they definitely, from what I saw this summer, expect Michael Carter to be one. So
Zach's got to be. Yeah. Not giving your quarterback a captaincy is a big red flag. That's like, we do not think this guy's a leader, which, is like, yeah, like if you look at the Giants, like Daniel Jones gets the captaincy every year, and like he's not a vocal guy, like he's quiet. But like again, like you look at Eli, he was the same way back in the day. So I don't know. I feel like most quarterbacks are probably a captain just for the confidence boost. But I'll tell you what, this roster looks good up and down. Very impressed with the Jets have done this offseason. We've been saying it for weeks. This team is in the perfect spot to compete this year, build, develop their young guys, and sauce on some of these rookies, get some of the injured guys back, and then make a playoff run for 2023. That was always the goal. That was always the expectation here. And I think that we've kind of laid out that narrative pretty nicely. And I think that it's showing to come to fruition up to this point in terms of how many guys got picked up off their cuts. Like, that's insane. That's a pretty clear indication of how good this roster is right now on paper at the very least. And how hard it was probably to make these decisions in the first place. So I'm definitely excited about the future of this team, to see how they do in the regular season and Zach Wilson's eventual return, my friends. But if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe as always, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets.